Sometimes, fate hides behind the chaos, and sometimes, love appears when life feels like it's falling apart. It was late afternoon in the small town of Brooksville, the kind of town where people smiled politely, but few truly cared about anyone else's pain. The wind carried the smell of rain, and the sky was painted in gray tones, as if it knew that Megan's heart had been drowning long before the first drop would ever fall. Megan walked quickly, holding her daughter Chloe's tiny hand. The girl, only 6 years old, had eyes like morning light, full of innocence. But lately, that light had started to fade. They'd been living in constant fear, hiding from someone who was supposed to protect them. That someone was Ethan, her ex-husband. Once he had been kind. Once he had promised forever. But alcohol had turned that promise into something dark, something dangerous. After the divorce, he couldn't let go. He began following her, showing up wherever she went, shouting in the streets, threatening, pleading, breaking down, then turning cruel again. Every day, Megan woke up with the same thought: how long can we live like this? That day, she had picked Chloe up from school and decided to take a longer route home, avoiding the places where Ethan might find them. The little girl hummed softly, clutching her worn-out teddy bear, unaware of the way her mother's hand trembled. "Mama, can we get ice cream today?" Chloe asked, her voice sweet and hopeful. Megan smiled faintly, hiding the storm inside her. "Maybe next week, honey. Mommy's got to save money right now." Chloe nodded, too used to hearing that answer. But then, from across the street, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Megan!" Her heart stopped. That voice, she knew it too well. Ethan stumbled toward them, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes red, and the smell of whiskey filling the air even before he got close. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. People walking by turned their heads for a second, then looked away. No one wanted to get involved. "Megan!" he shouted again, louder this time. "Why are you running away from me? We need to talk." "Ethan, please, not here," Megan said, her voice shaking. "Chloe is here. Please, not in front of her." Chloe's little hand squeezed her mother's. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whispered. "See what you're doing?" Ethan barked. "You're making her afraid of me. I'm her father." He stepped closer, his anger growing, his words slurring. Megan tried to back away, but her heel caught on the edge of the sidewalk. She almost fell. People were staring now. Some whispered. No one helped. Then, just as Ethan reached out and grabbed Megan's arm, another voice entered the chaos. Calm, steady, strong. "Hey, let her go." Ethan turned, his face red and twisted with rage. Standing a few feet away was a man in a dark blue suit, holding a leather briefcase, his hair perfectly styled despite the wind. He looked like he'd stepped out of another world entirely, a world where people had control, money, peace. Megan's breath caught. The man took a step forward. "You heard me. Let her go." Ethan laughed bitterly. "And who the hell are you? Her boyfriend?" The stranger's expression didn't change. Someone who doesn't like seeing a man scare a woman and her kid in the middle of the street. Ethan's grip tightened on Megan's arm. "This is none of your business." But before he could pull her again, the man stepped in and placed himself between them. He didn't raise his voice, but there was something in his presence. A quiet authority, the kind that didn't need shouting to be heard. "Walk away," he said softly, "before you regret it." For a moment, no one moved. The tension was thick, the street silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Ethan stared at him, then at Megan. He looked at Chloe, whose big eyes were now filled with tears. His expression flickered. Guilt, anger, confusion. And then he turned and walked away, muttering curses under his breath. Megan didn't move. Her knees felt weak. The man turned to her. His eyes were kind, but sharp, like someone who had seen too much and still chose to be gentle. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, though her voice was gone. He knelt down, his gaze meeting Chloe's. "And you, sweetheart? You all right?" Chloe sniffled and nodded slowly. "Thank you, mister." He smiled faintly. "You're welcome." Then he stood up again, offering Megan a small smile. "You should go somewhere safe. That man won't be gone long." Megan hesitated. I don't know where to go." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "My name's Oliver Reed," he said. "I run a community center downtown. We help women who are going through difficult times. If you ever need anything, food, a place to stay, protection, come by. No strings attached." She took the card, staring at the printed letters. His name looked elegant, powerful. "I don't want charity," she said, her pride flickering even through her fear. Oliver's smile deepened, just slightly. "Then don't think of it as charity. Think of it as someone doing what everyone else should have done a long time ago." Before she could reply, he gave a polite nod, turned, and walked away down the busy street. Megan stood there, holding Chloe close. She looked at the card again. Oliver Reed. That name would soon change everything. That night, Megan barely slept. She kept replaying the moment. His calm voice, the way he stepped between her and danger without hesitation. There was something about him she couldn't explain. He didn't look like someone who belonged in her world. His suit alone probably cost more than a month of her rent. But still, his eyes had held warmth. The next morning, Chloe woke up with a fever. Megan panicked. Her daughter's little body was burning, her breathing shallow. She didn't have money for a doctor. And then she remembered the card. Felt like fate whispering again. 2 hours later, Megan stood outside the brick building with Oliver Reed Foundation written above the glass doors. She hesitated, holding Chloe's hand. "Mommy, are we going to see the nice man?" the girl asked weakly. Megan nodded. "Yes, honey, we are." When they entered, the air smelled of coffee and fresh paint. The lobby was warm and quiet. A receptionist looked up and smiled kindly. "Good morning. Can I help you?" I need to see Mr. Reed," Megan said nervously. "He told me to come if I ever needed help." The woman nodded. "Of course. Please wait just a moment." Minutes later, Oliver appeared at the top of the stairs. His expression softened when he saw them. "Megan," he said, walking down quickly. "What happened?" "It's Chloe," she said, tears in her voice. "She's sick. I didn't know where else to go." He didn't hesitate. "Come with me." He took them to his car, a sleek black sedan that seemed almost too perfect for the tired woman and her little girl. He opened the door, helped Chloe inside, and drove straight to the nearest hospital. Megan sat in silence, watching him from the passenger seat. His hands on the wheel were steady, confident. He didn't say much, but there was something comforting about the quiet between them. At the hospital, Oliver spoke to the staff like someone used to being obeyed. Within minutes, Chloe was being examined by a doctor. Megan stood in the hallway, tears falling silently. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "I know," Oliver said softly, "but I wanted to." She looked at him, then really looked, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope. That night, as Chloe slept peacefully in a hospital bed for the first time in days, Megan sat beside her, holding her tiny hand. Oliver stood quietly by the window, watching the rain fall outside. When he finally turned toward her, he said something that made her heart tremble. "Sometimes, Megan, life gives us storms just so we can meet the people who'll walk through them with us." Megan didn't answer. She just stared at him, realizing she might have met someone who could change everything. Someone who might help her believe in good men again. Someone like Oliver Reed. The morning light slipped softly through the hospital curtains, painting golden lines across Chloe's tiny sleeping face. Megan had been awake all night, her hand resting on her daughter's as though letting go would somehow let the world take her away again. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. Oliver had stayed the entire night. He hadn't left the hospital, not even once. While Megan sat by Chloe's bedside, he had quietly handled everything. The paperwork, the doctor's visits, the medicine, the payment. He never made a show of it. He didn't ask for thanks. He just did it. When Chloe finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Megan's smile. "Good morning, sweetheart," Megan whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. How do you feel? Chloe blinked sleepily. Better. My throat doesn't hurt anymore. Good, Megan said, her eyes filling with tears. That's good. A gentle knock came from the doorway. Oliver stood there, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee and a small cup of hot chocolate. Looks like someone's feeling better, he said, smiling at Chloe. The little girl smiled weakly back. Hi, mister. I told you it's Oliver, he said with a grin. And this, he added, walking closer, is for you. He handed her the cup of hot chocolate, the smell of cocoa instantly lighting up her face. Thank you, she said, her voice still raspy but bright. You're welcome, he replied, his eyes warm. Megan looked at him, still unsure what to say. Gratitude wasn't enough for what he'd done. But every time she tried to speak, the words got lost somewhere between her heart and her lips. I'll make sure the hospital keeps her another night, Oliver said, turning to her. Just to be safe. Then tomorrow, you can both come stay at one of our transitional apartments. It's a safe place for women starting over. Megan shook her head immediately. I can't let you do that. You've already done too much. Oliver's expression softened, but his tone carried quiet conviction. Megan, you and Chloe deserve a chance to breathe again. You don't owe me anything. Just take the help, for her sake. She looked at Chloe, the tiny hands clutching the cup, the soft smile that had returned, and nodded slowly. Okay, she whispered, just until I can figure things out. Fair enough, Oliver said. Just until then. The next day, Megan carried Chloe out of the hospital, bundled in a blanket. Oliver led them to his car again. She noticed the faint scent of cedar and leather, the quiet hum of luxury that didn't feel arrogant, just peaceful. They drove in silence for a while. Then, suddenly, Chloe spoke up from the back seat. Mommy, is Mr. Oliver an angel? Megan's cheeks flushed, but Oliver chuckled. I'm definitely not an angel, he said, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Though that's very kind of you to say. You helped us, Chloe said with the simple certainty of a child. Only angels do that. Megan smiled shyly. She's always been a little too wise for her age. Oliver smiled back. That's a good thing. She'll need that wisdom one day. When they arrived, Megan's eyes widened. The building wasn't what she expected. She had imagined something small, perhaps old. But instead, it was a modern apartment complex, surrounded by flowers and clean white fences. Felt safe. Felt new. This is it, Oliver said, helping them out. You'll be staying here. There's food in the fridge, clothes in the closet, and if you need anything at all, call me. Megan turned to him, emotion rising in her chest. Oliver, I don't even know how to begin thanking you. Start by getting some rest, he said softly. And maybe a smile. That's enough thanks for me. Her lips trembled into a small smile. You make it sound so easy. He looked at her for a long moment, and there was something in his gaze. Not pity, not admiration exactly, but something deeper. Understanding. It's not easy, he said quietly, but it's possible. Days passed, and life began to feel almost normal again. Megan found herself breathing without fear for the first time in months. She'd wake up early, make breakfast with Chloe, and take her to the community center for art classes Oliver had arranged. Then, she'd help around the office, organizing files, managing calls, a small job Oliver insisted on paying her for. He claimed she was helping him, but she knew what he was really doing, giving her back her dignity. At first, she tried to keep her distance. Oliver was kind, patient, and charming, but Megan's heart had been broken too deeply to trust easily. Yet, little by little, he found his way in, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, steady things. He'd bring Chloe books about brave little girls and sit beside her while she read them aloud. He'd bring Megan coffee every morning, always remembering she liked it with just a hint of vanilla. He never crossed boundaries, never made her feel small. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Megan found herself sitting outside the center, watching Chloe play in the garden with other children. Oliver joined her, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She's happy, he said softly. She is, Megan agreed, smiling. I didn't think I'd see her laugh again. You're a good mother, Megan. She shook her head, her eyes dropping. I'm trying, but sometimes it feels like I'm just surviving. Oliver leaned back, his gaze thoughtful. Surviving is the hardest kind of living. Takes courage. You've already done the hardest part. You didn't give up. She looked at him, her chest tightening. You make everything sound so simple. He smiled faintly. Maybe because I've learned that sometimes the truth doesn't need to be complicated. There was a pause, the kind that wasn't awkward, just full of things unspoken. Megan turned her eyes back to Chloe. She loves it here. I don't want to lose this piece. You won't, Oliver said. Not as long as I can help it. But as peaceful as the moment was, fate had a way of testing fragile happiness. That same night, as Megan tucked Chloe into bed, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. When she answered, a voice she prayed she'd never hear again came through, low, slurred, angry. Megan. Her heart froze. Ethan. How did you get this number? You think you can just disappear? You think some rich guy can save you from me? He growled. You belong with me, Megan. I made a mistake. Okay? But you're my wife. Ex-wife, she whispered, glancing toward Chloe's room. Please, leave us alone. He laughed darkly. You really think that man's gonna protect you forever? He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know what I'm capable of. The line went dead. Megan stood in silence, trembling. The sound of Chloe's soft breathing from the next room was the only thing that kept her from collapsing. The next morning, she didn't tell Oliver about the call. She wanted to handle it herself. But fear followed her everywhere. Like a shadow she couldn't shake. Oliver noticed. You seem distracted, he said gently as they worked in the office. I'm fine, she lied. He didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Instead, he said, whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone. She wanted to believe that. But that night, when she walked out to throw the trash away, she froze. Across the street, leaning against a car, was Ethan, watching her. She rushed back inside, locking the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't tell Chloe. She didn't sleep. The next morning, when she arrived at the community center, Oliver noticed the dark circles under her eyes. He walked closer, his voice soft but firm. Megan, what happened? She hesitated, then whispered, he found us. For a moment, Oliver didn't speak. Then his jaw tightened. He won't hurt you, I promise. You don't know him, she said, tears welling up. He's not just angry, he's dangerous. Oliver's eyes burned with quiet resolve. Then he'll have to go through me first. Megan looked up at him, her fear meeting his strength. And in that moment, something changed. It wasn't just gratitude anymore. It wasn't just trust. It was something deeper, something fragile, yet powerful. It was the beginning of love. The following days carried an uneasy quiet, like the air right before a storm. Megan did her best to keep things normal for Chloe. Breakfast with pancakes, school drop-offs, bedtime stories. But inside, her nerves were burning. Every sound outside made her heart jump. Every car that slowed down near the apartment made her stomach twist. Oliver noticed everything. He didn't pry, but he stayed close. He started picking Megan and Chloe up himself in the mornings, dropping them off after work, and making sure they were never alone after dark. To anyone else, it might have looked like overprotection. To Megan, it felt like the first real safety she had known in years. One afternoon, as Megan left the office, the gray clouds above began to spill rain. Oliver was waiting by his car, holding an umbrella. You'll catch a cold, he said with a smile. Come on, let's get you both home. Megan hesitated. Oliver, you don't have to keep doing this. You've done more than enough already. He looked at her, calm, steady, the rain dripping from his coat. Maybe I don't have to, he said quietly, but I want to. Something in his voice made her chest tighten. She didn't answer, just nodded and followed him to the car. Chloe was in the back seat, humming softly to herself, clutching a stuffed rabbit Oliver had bought her. When they reached home, Megan thanked him again and turned to go, but he gently took her hand. "Megan," he said, his tone soft but serious. "If he comes near you again, if you even think you see him, call me. No matter what time it is. Understand?" She nodded slowly. "I will." But she didn't. That night, the rain grew heavier. The city lights blurred behind sheets of water, and the streets shimmered with reflection. Megan stood by the window, staring out at the world she didn't trust anymore. Chloe was asleep in the next room, clutching her rabbit tight. Then she saw it. A shadow outside. A man standing across the street, barely visible under the dim streetlight. He wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. Her blood ran cold. She pulled the curtains shut, locked the doors, and sank to the floor, shaking. Her first instinct was to call the police, but they'd never helped before. They'd always said, "We can't do anything unless he threatens you." He had, but there was no proof. Her hand trembled over her phone. Then, she pressed one name, Oliver. He picked up on the first ring. "Megan," her voice broke. "He's outside. He found us again." There was a pause, just long enough for her to hear the shift in his breathing. Then, in a tone calm but filled with urgency, he said, "Lock the door and stay away from the windows. I'm coming." She did as he said. The next 15 minutes felt like hours. Every sound made her flinch. Chloe stirred once, half awake, but Megan calmed her back to sleep. Then headlights cut through the darkness. Oliver's car screeched to a stop in front of the building. He got out, the rain pouring down his face as he scanned the street. The man across the road didn't move until Oliver started walking toward him. "Hey!" Oliver shouted, his voice sharp, cutting through the rain. "What do you think you're doing?" Ethan stepped forward, drunk, staggering slightly. "Who the hell are you?" he slurred. "I'm the man who's going to make sure you stay away from Megan and her daughter," Oliver said, his tone controlled but cold. Ethan laughed, his words thick. "You think you can take what's mine? She's my wife." "She's not," Oliver replied. "And you're going to leave her alone." Ethan took another step, his eyes bloodshot, fists clenching. "Or what? You gonna fight me, rich boy?" Oliver didn't flinch. "If that's what it takes." The streetlight flickered as the two men stood face to face, the rain pounding down. Ethan swung first, a wild, drunken hit that barely connected. Oliver caught his wrist, twisted it, and pushed him back, hard but not cruelly. "Go home," Oliver said, his voice low. "Don't come near her again." Ethan stumbled, cursing, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the dark. When Oliver finally stepped inside the apartment, Megan was standing there, pale, trembling, her eyes wide. "Is he gone?" she whispered. "He won't be back tonight," Oliver said, wiping the rain from his hair. "I'll make sure of it." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was electric. Fear, relief, and something else, something unspoken. "Why are you doing all this for me?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't even know me." Oliver looked at her, his expression softening. "Maybe I don't know everything about you, Megan, but I know what it's like to be afraid. And I know what it's like to wish someone had cared enough to stand by you." Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears filled her eyes, and before she could stop herself, she stepped forward, into his arms. He didn't say anything. He just held her, gently, like someone holding something precious and fragile. The storm raged outside, but inside, for the first time, she felt safe. In the days that followed, things began to change. Oliver hired private security to quietly keep an eye on the building, and Megan finally started to sleep again. Chloe adored him. She'd wait by the window in the mornings, hoping he'd be the one to drive her to school. When he was, she'd run to him, arms open wide, shouting, "Oliver!" as though he'd always been part of their world. And maybe, in a way, he had become part of it. Megan tried to keep her heart guarded, but every smile, every quiet act of kindness from him chipped away at her defenses. He was everything Ethan had never been: patient, gentle, steady. One evening, They sat together on the balcony after Chloe had gone to bed. The sky was painted in deep purples and golds. Megan leaned on the railing, her hair moving gently with the wind. "You're quiet tonight," Oliver said softly. "I'm just thinking," she replied, "about how quickly everything changed. A few weeks ago, I was terrified we wouldn't survive another night. And now you have peace," he said. She smiled faintly. "Maybe even hope." He turned toward her. "You deserve both." Their eyes met. A long, silent moment filled with things neither dared to say. Then Megan looked away, smiling sadly. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said. "You'll never have to find out," he replied quietly. And in that instant, Megan realized something she hadn't felt in years. She trusted him, completely, but the peace didn't last forever. 2 weeks later, as Oliver left his office one night, he noticed a man standing by his car, waiting. It was Ethan. He was sober this time, but his eyes burned with hatred. "You think you can just steal my family and walk away?" he hissed. Oliver sighed. "You need to get help, Ethan. For yourself and for them." "I need my wife back," Ethan snapped. "She's mine." Oliver's patience broke. "She was never yours to own. You broke her. You broke both of them. But I won't let you hurt them again." Ethan's face twisted in rage, and before Oliver could react, Ethan lunged. A flash of metal in his hand. Oliver dodged, grabbing his wrist and shoving him back hard. The knife clattered to the ground, and security guards rushed in from the nearby parking lot, tackling Ethan before he could move again. Oliver stepped back, his heart pounding. He looked down at the trembling man on the ground and said quietly, "It's over." Later that night, when Megan opened the door to find Oliver standing there, a small bandage on his arm, her heart nearly stopped. "What happened?" she gasped. He smiled faintly. "It's okay. It's over now. He won't hurt you again." She stared at him for a long moment, then threw her arms around him, tears falling freely. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You already have," he said softly, holding her close. For the first time in years, Megan didn't feel fear. She didn't feel alone. She felt safe. And without realizing it, she had fallen in love with the man who had saved her not once, but twice. First from danger and then from despair. For days, Megan couldn't shake the memory of that moment. Oliver's eyes, his steady voice, the way he stood between her and the chaos like a guardian she never expected to find. It wasn't just gratitude she felt. It was something deeper, something terrifyingly tender that she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. But she fought it, clinging to the walls she had built after her marriage fell apart. Love, to her, had been a trap once, a place of hurt and betrayal. She couldn't afford to fall again. Not with a child who depended on her. Not with a past that still chased her in the form of a drunk and broken man. Oliver, however, couldn't get Megan out of his mind either. Every night, he found himself replaying that afternoon, remembering the fear in Chloe's eyes, the strength in Megan's voice as she tried to protect her daughter. He'd seen resilience before, in business, in competition, but not like this. Not in the form of a mother standing tall against her own pain. There was something noble about her, something unspoken that stirred something deep within him. A week later, he found himself driving down the same street again. Not by coincidence, but by quiet intention. When he saw Megan and Chloe coming out of the small grocery store, he smiled, parked his car, and approached. Megan froze for a moment, unsure whether to run or stay. But then she saw the warmth in his face and the harmless smile he carried. "Megan," he said softly, his voice breaking the quiet hum of the street. "I was hoping I'd see you again." Her heart raced. "Oliver, why would you want to see me again?" He shrugged lightly. "Because I wanted to know if you were both okay. And maybe because I couldn't stop thinking about you." Her breath caught. There was sincerity in his tone. No arrogance, no pity, just kindness. That scared her even more than anger. She thanked him for his concern and tried to end the conversation. But Oliver gently persisted. "Can I take you both for ice cream? Chloe deserves something sweet after all that." "Chloe?" innocent and bright-eyed, looked up at her mother and whispered, "Please, Mommy." Megan hesitated, but she saw Chloe's joy and finally nodded. "All right, just for a little while." That afternoon changed everything. They sat together in a cozy little cafe by the river. Chloe laughed as she got ice cream all over her nose, and Oliver joined her laughter without reservation. Megan watched him, unsure whether to smile or cry. For the first time in so long, she felt something she thought she had lost: safety. Over the next few weeks, Oliver became a part of their small world. He would visit now and then, always bringing something small for Chloe: a coloring book, a box of crayons, or sometimes just his time. He never overstepped, never pushed too far. Instead, he waited, letting Megan come to trust him at her own pace. One evening, as the sun was setting and the city glowed in soft amber light, Megan finally spoke the truth. They were sitting on a park bench watching Chloe play. "Oliver," she began, her voice trembling, "you shouldn't be doing all this. You come from a different world. A safe, beautiful one. Mine is messy and complicated." He looked at her, calm and patient. "Megan, maybe your world needs someone who isn't afraid of the mess." She blinked back tears. "But my ex, he won't stop. He drinks, he follows me. I don't want to bring that chaos into your life." Oliver leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. "Then let me help you stand against it. You don't have to face this alone anymore." For the first time, Megan didn't push him away. Her eyes softened, and though she didn't say it out loud, something inside her shifted. She realized she was tired of surviving alone, tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. But their peace was fragile. That same night, as Megan and Chloe walked home, she noticed a shadow following them. Her ex-husband, Ethan. His gait was unsteady, his eyes bloodshot. "You think you can replace me?" he slurred, stepping out from behind a tree. "With some rich, pretty boy?" Megan's heart pounded as she pulled Chloe close. "Please, Ethan, go home." He didn't listen. He grabbed her arm roughly, making Chloe scream. Megan tried to free herself, panic rising, until headlights illuminated them both. It was Oliver. He jumped out of the car, fury burning in his eyes. "Let her go now." Ethan sneered. "You think you can take my family?" "She stopped being your family the day you broke them," Oliver said, his voice cold and steady. For a tense moment, it seemed violence would erupt. But Ethan, realizing the crowd forming around them, stumbled back and disappeared into the dark, muttering curses under his breath. Megan was shaking uncontrollably. Oliver approached gently, his hands trembling as he placed them on her shoulders. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I promise." That night, Megan couldn't sleep. She watched Chloe rest beside her, breathing peacefully, while her own thoughts raced. Oliver had risked himself for them again. He wasn't doing it out of pity. She could feel that now. He cared, truly cared. And in the quiet hours before dawn, Megan whispered to herself words she hadn't said in years. "Maybe I can love again." But she didn't know that Ethan's anger hadn't ended there. Somewhere in the dark, bitterness was brewing, and soon, it would force all of them to face the final test of love, courage, and redemption. The story was far from over, but for the first time, hope had entered Megan's life again, carried by the man who refused to walk away from her pain. The days that followed felt like a long exhale after years of holding her breath. The chaos was finally behind them. Ethan had been taken into custody, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Megan didn't have to look over her shoulder. The morning light that entered the new apartment was softer now, golden, warm, full of promise. Chloe's laughter filled every corner, her little feet running across the floor as she chased after her new kitten that Oliver had brought her as a gift. Megan stood by the window, a cup of coffee in her hands, watching the sun climb higher over the city skyline. Oliver was there, sitting on the couch, papers spread out before him. "I've been thinking," he said with a small smile, looking up at her. "You once told me you wanted to study again. Finish your degree." Megan nodded, startled. "I did, but I can't. Not now. I need to work to take care of Chloe. Oliver interrupted her gently. What if I told you I could help? Not by giving you everything, but by giving you a chance to do it your way. She hesitated. Oliver, I can't take more from you. You've done enough. He stood and walked closer, stopping right in front of her. You're not taking. You're earning. You've fought through more than most people could survive. You deserve a future that matches your strength. Her throat tightened. She had spent so long fighting, surviving, enduring. She'd forgotten what it felt like to simply hope. Let me help you, he said softly. Just say yes. Megan looked into his eyes that had seen her at her weakest and never turned away. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled through tears. Yes. Months passed, and everything began to change. Megan enrolled in a business administration program, studying part-time while working at the cafe. Oliver visited often, sometimes helping Chloe with her homework, other times bringing dinner after her long classes. Their lives intertwined naturally, like two rivers finding the same path. But their bond wasn't built on fairy tale perfection. There were hard days, nights when Megan woke from nightmares, mornings when she doubted she was strong enough. But every time she faltered, Oliver was there, steady as ever, reminding her that love wasn't about rescuing someone. It was about walking beside them, even when the road was broken. One chilly evening, almost a year after they'd met, Oliver invited Megan and Chloe to a park near the river. The air was crisp, and the trees were dressed in gold and red leaves. Chloe ran ahead, her laughter echoing through the open space. Megan turned to Oliver, smiling. She's so happy now. You gave her that. He shook his head. No, Megan. You did. You're her home. I just built a bridge so you could both get there. She looked at him then, really looked. The man who had stepped into her life not to save her, but to believe in her when no one else did. Oliver, she said softly, why me? You could have anyone. Why choose someone like me? He stepped closer, his voice low and certain. Because you're real. Because you've known pain and still choose kindness. Because you love fiercely, even when the world gave you every reason not to. And because from the moment I saw you standing there that day, trying to protect your daughter, I knew I'd spend the rest of my life trying to protect that strength. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of peace, not pain. Oliver knelt down, pulling a small box from his coat pocket. Chloe, noticing from afar, gasped and ran toward them. Mom, what's happening? Megan laughed through her tears. I'm not sure, honey. Oliver opened the box, revealing a delicate silver ring that sparkled in the afternoon light. Megan, I don't just love you. I admire you. You showed me what true courage looks like. And I love Chloe like she's my own. I want us to build something new. A home built on love, not fear. Will you marry me? Megan covered her mouth, her body trembling as Chloe clapped her tiny hands in excitement. Say yes, Mommy. Say yes. She looked at Oliver, the man who had seen her broken and helped her find her strength again, and nodded through her tears. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. Oliver slipped the ring on her finger, and Chloe threw her arms around both of them. The three of them stayed like that, holding each other, while the wind rustled through the trees and the sun dipped behind the horizon. From that day forward, life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became real, full of laughter, learning, small victories, and quiet nights where love felt simple and steady. Megan finished her degree, opening her own small business helping women find jobs after divorce. Oliver continued his work, always supporting her dreams. Years later, they would sit on the porch of their countryside home, watching Chloe, now older, run across the grass with the same joy she'd always carried. Megan would rest her head on Oliver's shoulder, whispering, I never thought I'd have this. And he'd smile and answer, it's because you never gave up. You believed when it was hardest. The story of Megan, Chloe, and Oliver wasn't about a man saving a woman. It was about love finding its way to those who'd lost faith in it. It was about courage, forgiveness, and the beauty of starting over. Because sometimes the people who have been through the darkest storms don't just find the light, they become it. And on that quiet evening, with laughter echoing through their home, Megan finally understood. The past could no longer hurt her, because love, real, kind, patient love, had rewritten her story forever.